housekeeping rules, as I already mentioned, please make sure that you're muted all the time so we don't have any interfering sounds in the background. Feel free to show us your face by turning on the camera. I think it's always nice to see who's all participating, and it's good to see not just the black void, but really some faces that makes it very much easier and more interesting. For the housekeeping rules, other than that, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. Please use that function. We'll definitely keep them up. We'll have an eye on that, but it's just easier that way, and we don't have. It's easier than using the raise the hand button. We'll have around 20 minutes of initial remarks, and then we'll have a good half an hour to actually have a discussion and answer your questions as well. And with that, and without further ado, I want to start the meeting by saying welcome to everyone. My name is Niklas Ninas. I'm a member of the European Parliament from Germany. I'm coordinator for the Regi Committee for the Greens, and I'm also co-chair of the Smart Villages and Rumra Intergroup of the European Parliament that is very much concerned with the issues of rural development and the situation of rural areas and how we can improve living in the villages in Europe. Thank you very much for being here today, because we want to take the opportunity to take a look at the possibilities that we have today in the funding of European funds. We have finished the negotiations on the CPR, on the Commons Provisions Regulations for the Regi funding. So for all the funds may be the JTF, the ESF, or the ERDF, or even the MFF. And we finished that already last year in December, but it took some time, and we'll probably in June, in the end of June, we'll probably finally decide on it in the plenary. I don't have any doubts that this will go through. We have a very broad support from Council and Parliament for the current position, and that includes also a 10% extra co-financing for community-led local developments in ESF, ERDF, and all the other Regi funds. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to take a deeper look into how can we use community-led local developments, or CLLD, and the experience that we have with that already in the other funds, namely in the ELER fund, so in the Rural Development Fund, and what can we make out of that? Does it make sense to actually have citizens' participation in usage of fund, and does that bring forth the funding and the regions themselves? How can we use that in future from the new funds that we have, and what is the Commission maybe already planning in doing so with the member states? So for that reason, I'm very happy to have a very big panel of speakers today who bring insights from different areas all over Europe. And so I want to introduce to you our 7 speakers for today. The first one is Peter Toth. He is from the European Network for Rural Development. The second one is Radim Cicin. He's from the Committee of the Regions for the NAT Commission, and he's also a mayor of a Czech municipality and the president of his LEADER action group. Then we have Ivona Listvan from the DG Agri, who is the policy coordinator for LEADER. We have Elfethoris Stavropoulos, who is from the DG Regius, also from the Commission, but he is the expert on CLD funding. We have Alina Čung-Pertlič, who is the CLD and LEADER expert in the Ministry of Agriculture from Slovenia, who is, of course, Slovenia, as you know, will be the next presidency from the European Council. We have Marion Eckert, who is the president of the ELAD. ELAD is the European Leader Association for Rural Development, so the combination of over 2,200 leader action groups from 26 countries all over Europe. She's also very experienced in Sweden since 2009 in leader action. And we have Olaf Pomeranz, who's from Rostock. He's a regional manager in LEADER here in Mecklenburg-Pomerania. So thank you very much you all for coming, and we'll make the tour around and have an initial question for you and your introductory statement. So the basic question that we want to raise with this is, Why do we even need citizen participation? And does that bring forth the regions if we use it wisely? And I want to start with Peter, who is from the European Network of Rural Development and has therefore a very good insight from all the stakeholders. Peter, please, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Niklas. And I'm so happy to see so many familiar faces here who are very, very good leader, very knowledgeable leader experts from all around Europe. So it's great to have you, and great that you have me here. I would say it's fundamental that local citizens participate in the development of their own local territories. And the other side of it is that resources and capacities for this should be made available. One of the most important things that citizens' participation brings is the feeling of empowerment, the empowerment of local citizens and local communities, which is very, very important for building local democracy, for building local solutions. Based on this feeling of empowerment and based on this cooperation in the local territory between different types of institutions, people, NGOs, public, private, businesses, and all these, comes a sort of enhanced knowledge and an enhanced commitment to the local territory. So that's another very important advantage of citizen participation. The commitment and knowledge and the bond to the local territory increases. So this improvement brings about changes in how people view their own local territories. They view it more broadly, not only in a one sector or sectoral approach, but a cross-sectoral, more integrated approach. So that's another thing that this approach brings. And I would say that what I'm talking about now is really related very strongly to the principles of leaders. So yes, bottom-up approach is one of the key principles, one of the core principles, but out of this comes local cooperation, local networking, and not just local networking. This enhanced view of the local territory, which is integrated and multi-sectoral, brings about the multi-sectoral strategies, local partnerships, and all this is based on an area-based approach. So one step ahead of that, and I have to note, and I have to emphasize, and I'm sure most of you know that Leader as an approach celebrates its 30th year now in 2021. So the approach has been around in the EU for 30 years. It started in 1991, and it has proven its resilience. It has proven its added value all along these years. Very, very important message to say. So getting back to cooperation, another added value of citizen participation is by cooperating together with different people, different businesses, both within your territory and outside your territory with other local action groups or across national borders, as well comes trust and come real communities and effective networks. So local communities can cooperate with each other, and that also has multiple positive effects, not only locally, but also on a regional and a national and even on an EU level. So it strengthens democratic culture, it strengthens citizens' commitment to development, it raises awareness of the multi-sectoral nature of challenges, and strengthens the resilience of local communities, and also enhances their knowledge about other countries, other communities. So these are very, very important things. And of course, it enhances local people's knowledge about the European Union, what it's all about, and it connects them to this European Union project.
All right, thank you very much, Peter, for this remarks already. I think you've made a very strong point how important it is to really bring the people in there and benefit from their knowledge as well. Thank you very much for that. We will have to move on to the next speaker, but we can elaborate on that definitely later on. So the next one we would like to hear from is actually Ivona from the DG Agri, because you mentioned, Peter, 30 years of leader already, always in the DG Agri. So Ivona, what is your experience from the last 30 years, and maybe what can we draw from that, and how can we extend on that? Is it useful? Do we need it maybe more being used for also DG Regi?
Absolutely. I'm here to say in an entertaining way that is really useful. Peter mentioned the method. The method is mature. We are sure about it. We have 7 ingredients of this method. and we cannot deal with 6. All the 7 need to be met. Otherwise, there is no added value. So the method has been tested and it's been successful for almost 3,000 lags. It's a bit of, it takes some effort to do it in this method, but we believe it is worth it. And maybe here I would like to once again list the added value. Why is it worth it? Why do we go into building the partnerships, doing the strategies, getting them to network? It's a lot of effort. And I think we have clarity. What is it that we are doing? We are getting social capital. Social capital is something that maybe doesn't have a tangible definition, but it's a bit like air. We all breathe it, we all need it. It has links for innovation, for risk-taking, and I think in the COVID time that we are today experiencing linkages and social capital, it also gives us a feeling of security, belonging, and responses to crisis. The second added value that we believe we are bringing, I wanted to say one thing, engagement. Engagement of young people, first in the local development, but I would say maybe also being part of wider political processes that I think is something that Europe needs more, people to sort of be active in a more social way. The second thing, which is very clear from our work, is local governance, better local governance. It's something very real. It means citizens can find what they need nearby. And we need this level of government because sometimes when you are looking from higher up, you don't see more smaller needs and they can have access. Our groups are also getting the people to use the funds. It's not only distributing the funds, because that's, I would say, relatively easy, but they are also trying to mobilize more people to work together and get the funds. And the final thing that we are doing through this approach is we are getting projects which are having additional added value. For example, they are more connected, or they are from more people in the local area. I don't want to use the word synergy because it's typical word from the Zoom meeting, but we are looking simply for more participation, for something real. And we will just try to keep it alive, because after 30 years, it's difficult to be innovative every day. So our job is to maintain all these principles alive in every lag in Europe. And we are doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ivona. There was a very good wrap up also of the last 30 years. And now looking ahead, I would ask maybe Olaf, what is your expectancy for the next 7 years, or for the programs yet to come, and what do you, from your personal background and you working on the field with it, what do you see as a problem, or how does participation sometimes not always work, or does it work always perfectly?
Good. Okay. First, sorry, my English is not very good, unfortunately. I hope it will work. Okay. 2 short points for me. Firstly, the local people in the region know exactly what is needed and what is missing. They often also know which ideas can work and which cannot. That means with the help of citizens, we get an individual and functioning development for each region. Because it makes little sense to blindly transfer a successful model from one region to another. Second, if citizens can decide on founding locally, they are highly motivated to only support meaningful projects for their region, because they live and work in the region. This means that they are confronted with the consequences of their decisions. That means they see the good, but also the less good projects every day. This fact has a very disciplinary effect on the sensible use of funds. In summary, I would like to state that it's sensible and promising to involve local citizens in the selection of projects and the allocation of funding. A good example is LEADER. Okay, that's a shortly answer for me.
All right, thank you very much for that. I want to continue with Radim then, because you're also, I mean, you know Leader quite a lot. You've worked with it for some time. You're also the head of your Leader community, but also you're the chair of the Committee of the Regions Commission. Committee, sorry. And the question that I want to raise here is also to extend a little bit the idea from rural development, and with the possibilities that we have now secured with the CPR, with additional co-financing, does that make an impact also for the Committee of the Regions to say we want to use the tool of Leader or of community-led local development also in other funds, and we want to use other funds also in rural development? How's the discussion in the Committee of the Regions going in that regard?
So good afternoon to everybody. It's a great pleasure to participate at this event. Actually, I fell in love with Leader 14 years ago, the same year when I got married to my wife. So it's already a long love. And I do have experience not just from my region and the European Union, but also from Georgia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I am 100% sure that this instrument works. And I am sure that citizens' engagement is crucial, because what is EU missing in this moment is legitimacy. And through instruments like Leader CLD and other territorial instruments like ITI, we can bring Europe to the living rooms of people. We can bring Europe to citizens. What I believe is that rural areas are not just about agricultural policy. You know, rural development is a part of regional development. And that's the crucial point why we do not, we can't rely just on common agricultural policy. We do need different resources. Actually, in the Czech Republic, we have a good experience with multi-funding, and we do need to use all the possible resources, including not just ESI funds, but including resilience and recovery funds, because the rural areas are the most vulnerable ones. And I'm sure that even CLD should have place and will have place in some of the countries, even in those instruments. What is another point, that rural areas are not a museum, that I am very happy that this group is also dedicated to the smart villages. I very much believe in smart villages concept. Again, smart villages is not a separate policy, it's a part of a smart concept. It should be connected to smart regions, to smart cities, and it should use all different fundings, and it should use also the local action groups as so-called innovation brokers, who are the holders of smart villages policy. To sum it up, the Committee of the Regions very much supports CLLD, very much supports the multi-fund concept. And in our opinion, we do have a requirement to have a minimum percentage from all funds to support the CLLD, which is 8%. Actually, in the Czech Republic, we do have 8% in ERDF. We should have 8% even in CAP. We do have resources from ESF. So I think it's possible, but we need to persuade the managing authorities. And I truly believe that CLD is the innovative instruments which works and which should be very successful in the development of rural areas, because for me, the rural areas are our future, and the people should live in the rural areas, including the young people and all different kinds of generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Radim. Very much on time. So I was a little bit surprised about that. All right, I wanted to bring in this regard Marion from ELAT, who has, of course, the view of basically all the leader groups that we have over Europe. So you know very well about the benefits, but also about the struggles that maybe some groups might have. And one point that Radim just mentioned concerning the 8% that was asked for, 8% of CLLD being spent in all funds, in ERDF and ESF, and so on and so forth. Is that already a reality in some groups? Do you expect more from that? Do you hope it will happen? And on a side note, I want to put it in here because what has been mentioned before, the question on smart villages. And Lambrecht Van Rompuy is in the audience at the moment, and actually he's a former MEP who also supported rural development and the smart villages approach a little bit. And so I wanted to pick up his question that he raised. If you could bring in a short info on smart villages, what your expectancies are from that, and what you see with the scope of rural development groups all over Europe, what you expect from the initiative from smart villages as well.
Thank you, Niklas. Yeah, I think that firstly, I think that the CLLD is important because we need to see that the regional fund and the social fund, they are supposed to invest in all citizens around Europe, also the rural ones. And the last research I saw on it from Mr. Stefan Kah, who is in the audience, and I think from the Committee of Region, it was financed, 10% only is going to the rural citizens. And that is, of course, too little. And I think what Radim was talking about, also this feeling of a Europe that is sliding apart, people are feeling left behind. Well, of course, this is part of it. We need to invest in equal parts to the rural and urban citizens. So I think that's a fair share, and I think that would also increase the trust and the credibility of European institutions, national institutions, and even regional institutions. So CLLD, do I expect more of it? No, unfortunately not. I think it is the same countries more or less. Some is leaving, some is coming to it, and I don't have a feeling that it is more countries really going ahead. I've seen a few countries also being able to work a little bit with recovery funds on CLLD, or at least proposing it, but I hope it should more, and we have been extra because of that, trying to work for the earmarking on the European level, because we find the problem is mostly on the member state level, where we don't find the support. And I really don't know what it is for, because I think we can bring so much for the development of the rural areas. We can bring democratization through participatory approaches, we can bring identity, we can bring knowledge transfer, we create jobs, social responsibility, we involve underrepresented groups, we promote technical and social innovation, and of course smart villages can be part of that. Environment and climate policy also we work with, and we have seen also in last years how LAGs perform well in the crisis management. We work for a resilient Europe in that way. So I think that is important, and I think you just snapped your hand, or didn't you? Do I have more time? Yeah, I'm done. Okay, that's it then.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, Marion. And I want to continue because you mentioned the member states, but we want to, before we headed to the member states, so Alina, before we come to you, I want to draw it back to the Commission first again and see what is going on at the moment in the Regi Commission, or sorry, in the DG Regio, with Eleftherios, who can maybe give us an insight. What is going on at the moment, especially with CLLD funding in the plans that have been prepared by the member states, and are member states taking up the little bait that we put out there? Because Marion already said we wanted, as Parliament, we wanted to have an earmarking, or we wanted to ask the member states to put money into CLLD. They denied that, and then we said, okay, then we increase the co-financing in order to make them use CLLD as a positive influence. So how is that going on? Maybe you can elaborate on that.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Let me respond directly to your question. As you know, in the European Union, we have economic governance, which is translated into the semester and the country-specific recommendations per year to the member states. For the first time, we've managed to territorialize this, let's say, approach, and all the governments now have received also territorial, I would say, also recommendations from the Commission. So in several member states, the issues of the inequalities in the rural areas have been addressed after thorough research on the available data and the situation in the respective member states. And that now has to be translated into the new period operational programs. And of course, this is something that it's still a process that goes on. Several member states have submitted drafts already of their partnership agreements and in some cases of operational programs. But of course, we have to await, first of all, the official approval by the Parliament of all the regulatory framework, which, as you said, will happen in June. And then, of course, the official submissions will start and the process of screening, monitoring, and approval on the side of the DG Regio. When it comes to rural areas and the funding coming from the ERDF that Marion mentioned, I would like to stress that, of course, already in the current period and by the end of 2020, according to the data that we have, the ERDF and the Cohesion Fund alone have contributed more than 46 billion euros to the rural areas. But this is not all, because there are a lot of projects, especially big projects like, let's say, broadband networks or big highways, which we do not attribute to rural areas, although they influence and they improve the life in rural areas. So the investments are even bigger than that. And then, of course, the use of the CLLD is important element, because, of course, the successful implementation of CLLD and the added value of CLLD, as many colleagues have already stressed about the ownership, the participation that it offers to the local communities, is something that has been recognized also in the field of regional policy, and therefore we support CLLD also by ERDF. In the current period, more than 500 strategies around Europe received the ERDF, and we hope that now the uptake in the new programming period will be even more significant. And happy to reply to more questions and to provide more data in the discussion.
Thank you very much for this insight from the DG Regi already. We come to Alina, who is already, of course, very well known to the leader concept, since she's in the Ministry for Agriculture in Slovenia. But the question here is, and that's also in regard to the presidency that is going to start in a few weeks already. Will the presidency also take a look into how to implement the CLLD that we know from LEADER into the other regional development funds, in order to increase funding, of course, for rural development, but also to ensure that citizens' participation is being met all over Europe in all the funds that we have? Is that a priority for the Slovenian presidency?
Thank you, Niklas, for the invitation. Warm greetings to all the panelists and all the listeners to this conference or this debate. Yes, of course, the long-term vision of rural areas is one of the priorities, of our ministry, and among other important fields or issues. I mean, agriculture, food processing, bioeconomy, environmental questions. The focus is, of course, on closing the gap between urban and rural areas, and in that way, in somehow enable coherent territorial development, as the representative from DG Regio has spoken of. However, if I may just address a little bit this citizen participation of in the development of a certain region. I think that when now I'm almost 20 years in this field, studying, researching, and this leader or bottom-up approach, and I always come to the same result, that the local inhabitants or the rural citizens are those which are recognized as a driving forces of the development of certain territory. And the leader, and just recently the CLLD has certainly proven this. And why is, for me, as a member of our ministry or the head of the coordination committee for CLLD, why is this bottom-up approach and the participation of citizens so important for the development of certain territory? On one hand, this bottom-up approach focuses on specific, how should I say, micro attributes or micro characteristic of a certain territory, and as such, it can reflect certain needs, and these needs are the core of the future development. And as Ivona stressed out, the involving of citizens, particularly the young people, means strengthening the cooperation and collaboration in the entire development process. I mean, preparation, decision making, and also the implementation phase. And if citizens, if young people are included in this future development process, yes, I have 30 seconds. They can decide on their future, and this future, which is collaborative, I think decided on, is the future which is also aligned with special needs of the people which live in certain territory.
Thank you very much. There was a very good point here, especially on you know, being from the younger generation myself. This is of course very important for me to see more young people to be engaged, especially in local politics, and to be engaged in really changing their surroundings as well. We want to move from Slovenia a little bit just to Tyrol, so to Christian Stampfer, who is the head of unit from the Tiroler Regional Authority. And there is in regard to the section of EU regional policy. So maybe Christian, you can give us a short introduction in how are you using regional funds, maybe also to bring people together, and what is an example of your region and how the funds can be used pretty well to really engage in what Alina said and bring people, make them being engaged in politics.
Thank you, Niklas. Hello to everybody from Tyrol. We in Tyrol, we use LEADER and CLD within ERDF. ERDF also cross-border with Italy, Austria, the only program who uses also CLD cross-border. And we will also manage to use CLD with Bavaria, Austria for the upcoming period. We were not successful with the ESF due to the national level. They want to stick to their own administrative system, but they agreed to make specific calls for LEADER areas. So it's more or less a half CLD concept what we had. The question why we are not using only LEADER but going strongly to CLD is the following, mentioned also by Peter or Marion. Integrated approach is not a monosectoral approach. You need all different funds and all different stakeholders work together on European level down to the local level. This is the only way to create acceptance on the local level. DRF, for example, we are using it now for this period, brought us some small and medium-sized enterprises to the LEADER to CLD concept, research institutes who are working now together with you. Renewable energy was really taking off since we have it in there. Digitization is now a big topic in the rural areas, and also rural-urban linkages are now common discussions what we have. So the broader you make the basis, the more people will get engaged, the more people will get involved, and therefore you will have a sustainable local development. And this leads also to the next thing, that also on regional level, our government, our politicians see the advantage and see the outcome and results, and therefore also they are now behind the concept, they are fostering the concept, they are streamlining also regional funds towards the LEADER concept, where also regional funds, funds from the Tyrolean government, will be managed by the LEADER areas, in addition on top of the European fund. And we managed two things. We have a one-stop shop on local level with LEADER CLD, and with our department, we have a one-stop shop on regional level. We coordinate 28 units in Tyrol, governmental units and units outside of the government, and all of them are working together to foster local development. the main problem why it's not working in other regions in Austria is not on ministerial level in Austria, it's on the regional level. The ministry in Austria is totally fostering our approach. The other regions, they don't want to work together. Let's say it's simple as it is. They need to be encouraged by a mandatory percentage what they have to put in there. Thank you. That's it.
All right, perfect. That's a very good finishing sentence. We have all these statements, so please feel free to submit your questions through the chat. We have already received several questions, but I want to pick up on something that Christian just said concerning the CLLD region cross-border. That is truly unique in Tyrol, so across Italy and across the border of Italy and Austria. And that is something that I want to pitch as an idea also in the rounds of speakers here, because isn't that a good idea to foster that a little bit more and to see that we in future use more the cross-border cooperation? Because to be honest, when we spend European funds, I always am missing a little bit the European dimension behind it. You know, when we have, for example, when we're talking about cultural funds, you only get funding if you have a cross-border dimension. Whereas with the most, except for Interreg, with the most regional funding that we spend, it goes directly to the member states, and we barely have connection with other member states. Sometimes I know from Germany there are some leader regions that have problems to work together with other ones from the same member state, but in different regions. That's also quite insane. But how can we, what could be the benefits of that, Mary? And maybe you can say from your experience, because I know that you're also very well connected with other leader groups and with members from all over Europe, by the way, not just EU members. And what is their expectancies? Would they like to work more together, or do they say, you know what, we want to focus on our region first, and then we want to see how that works?
I think the benefit for transnational cooperation are huge, and I see also the responsibility not only of European institutions to put the rules, but I also see it is necessary for the local action groups to see their possibility to influence Europe and where we are going right now, because we are right there, right at the kitchen table of our citizens. And can we show that Europe is there, and can we show what is the meaning of Europe, then we can make a real contribution. And can we also even bring the voices of the citizens to Europe, like for example now in the conference on the future of Europe, I am trying, I have at least informed all our allied members about it, so that they have the possibility to inform their local action groups, and that we can all together take responsibility to keep the Europe that we want to have, or develop it into what we want to have. And I think, yes, and the reason why we have so little transnational cooperation, I think there are two. One is, of course, that some countries make insane bureaucracy, Germany being one of them actually, but and the other is that it is hard if you have like a local regional focus like we do in the local action groups, then it's hard to we also need to do transnational, and therefore it needs to be simple bureaucracy, otherwise it will just be too much work. And I think the ones that have reached it and started it, we need to be at the front and need to show the benefits, and I think we are at a couple of them that are trying very much on national level to show this European family that we are almost in, and many of them are here today. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, Marion. We also have Peter, who raised his hand on this regard as well.
Yes, thank you very much. Just to say that interterritorial and transnational cooperation are actually integral parts of the leader approach. They are actually sub-measures of leader under EAFRD. And yes, it has a lot to do with the rules and regulations that member states make in relation to that. So these have to be harmonized as much as possible to make it easy for local action groups, because the benefits are immense of cooperation. So learning from other member states, other local action groups with similar problems. You might find a local action group partner which has very similar local issues outside of your national boundary. maybe it's not even your member state next to cross-border, but far away in another part of Europe, talking about vine growing or depopulation. These are issues that the different parts of Europe have to tackle and have a lot to learn from each other. And this is very much going on. We have a lot of resources also on the ENRD website about that, so I can post some in the chat if regarding regulations. We had a special working group also about this, looking exactly at that. Thank you.
Please feel free to do so. And I also have to say, whenever I'm talking with people from my constituency, I always show them Interreg websites first, because I think it helps quite a lot to know that there's other people from all around the world, all over Europe, who face similar problems and have maybe already thought of ideas and solutions. Ivona, I think you also raised your hand on the question of cross-border cooperation and how we can enhance that, maybe.
Yes, I think it's a bit of a mature thing, because we had a lot of some examples of this, and they have been disseminated through the network, our rural development network. One thing that it is going to hopefully facilitate it, that it will be now the cross-border or other cooperation projects will be now part of rural development strategies, and leader groups will decide about them, not the managing authorities. So I think it should also make it much more simple, because they know what they want to do and they just will do it, rather than wait for managing authorities, which is a little bit outside their control. We hope that this would be an incentive for more leader groups to take up these projects, especially now that they should know more how to do it, because they have been learning over the years. So that's a change in the EU legislation on this point.
All right, we're very interested to see what is coming out of the CAP negotiations of that. But anyway, I want to continue with Radim, who also raised his hand on the cross-border question.
Yes, I truly believe that international cooperation, not just cross-border, but generally international cooperation through LEADER is crucial. But although we would select our projects in this programming period in the Czech Republic, there are just, I think, 3 international cooperation projects for 185 local action groups. And it's because of the great failure of the managing authority. The rules are set in such a manner that it's impossible to do the cooperation project for LEADER. So we are doing cooperation projects through Interreg. We are doing it through Erasmus, for example. Now we are doing youth engagement in the local politics with Georgian luck and Estonian luck, but we are not able to make a cooperation project through LEADER cooperation here. So it's a failure, and I hope that the rules given from the European level will be more clear, just to stop the gold plating, because it's really incredible. They think that it's kind of tourism, that they are just traveling and spending money, but I do cooperate with Tyrolean luck, with Stefan Niedermoser, and there is a huge sharing of experience from Tyrol in tourism, in youth engagement. So I think it's important, and I think this is one of the biggest problems of LEADER within Europe, because I think there are borders between the countries, not given the space to cooperate.
Yes, thank you very much. And I want to bring us from the EARDF and the discussion that we're having at the moment in the trilogue and the CAP reform, also back to the ERDF and the ESF, of course. So basically, with the question, maybe how can we imply CLLD also maybe directly into the Interreg, or how can we use it maybe also in cross-border terms with the ERDF? And that could be a question. I know that you already answered parts of it in the chat, but maybe Eleftherios, you could say a word about that, how we can use CLD in future more in the ERDF as well as there was a question, and by the way, I misspoke his name earlier. I mistook him for the former Belgian Prime Minister, but it's not from Rompuy, but it's from Nistelrooy. I'm sorry for that. But he raised also the question to the Commission there in the chat on your expectancies or your knowledge so far, what the member states are exactly planning on how they use smart villages as well as CLLD methods for the future in their plans, in their not transition plans, but operational programs.
Thank you for this question. Well, as you know, cohesion policy is a shared managed policy. That means that we have an enabling framework thanks to the support also from the Parliament. And that enabling framework then is up to the member states and to the regions if they will use it to the full extent, if they will use, let's say, CLLD to a great extent or to a lesser extent. Let's say all these elements are there in the regulation, of course, but there is no obligation to the member states to use ERDF funded CLLD. We know, for example, the good cases like Radim mentioned the Czech Republic, where we had a very good multi-fund implementation of CLLD. But we have also Estonia that they decided that they wanted to have only CLLD funded by the Rural Development Fund. And this is not bad. It depends also on the specificities and on the needs of the member states. And we hope that, of course, the current programming period serves already as a testing ground for member states to use ERDF in the sphere of CLLD. We hope also that this additional co-financing that exists, should the member states use CLLD, they can profit from a 10% increased co-financing. All that will help for a larger uptake of CLLD. And of course, we do make an effort to further advertise and build the administrative capacity of the member states, of the local authorities, to use it also in the context of the cross-border programs in the future.
Thank you very much. And I want to hand it directly to Lina and give an additional question, because you also raised your hand, but I also have a question for you here in this regard. Let's say I was living in Slovenia at the moment, and let's say I would have been maybe a social worker from Ljubljana. I want to ensure that we have CLD programs in the ESF in Slovenia, or I would be living in the rural areas, maybe in I don't know, Muljava or somewhere, and trying to get more funding from ERDF in CLD method. What would I have to do, and maybe you can give that as a hint to all the participants that we have today, what would I have to do in order to persuade you or the managing authority and the ministry, etc., in order to write into the operational programs that more CLD is being used in ESF, in ERDF, also, of course, in EARDF, in rural development, etc.
Thank you, Nicholas, for the questions. And I'm really happy that I'm hearing the word Muljava, which you mentioned, which is a very small village in my own community. So it's like 5 kilometers from my home. And I'm very grateful that I'm hearing this word here. However, yes.
Before Corona, I actually I went to Slovenia to went hiking, etc.
Great. Oh, maybe you could come to visit me and have a coffee together. But next time you're mostly invited. So about CLLD, I think that looking down on the past period, so the period 2014-2020, which is for the ERDF prolonged for 2 years. But however, in this period, Slovenia has included in the CLLD also the ERDF, so the regional fund, and it extended for the additional amount of funding. And we have seen that all 37 lakhs, which are covering the entire territory of Slovenia, they all have included the ERDF funding in their strategies. Some of them also the fishery funding, but all of them also the funding from the ERDF, so the agricultural fund. And I could not imagine that the upcoming period without these funds. And as we are talking, we have various discussions with local action groups. Several discussions for the next period. They're actively included in the preparation of the system for the CLD system in the next period, and they are really happy to hear that the government decided to include also the social fund in the CLLD. So therefore, in the next period, our Slovenian LACs, they will have the opportunity to implement the projects with funds from four different areas. Therefore, I cannot imagine that this would go back step or 2 or 3 steps back to the period when we just begin with agricultural funds. So just the leader approach. And as you, I think that I have answered you for the first part of your question. But what will you have to do in order to persuade? I don't think that there is a need in Slovenia to persuade the government to include the CLLD, because a lot of projects, enormous amount of projects have been implemented through ERDF, Fishery Fund, Agricultural Fund. We have raised the number of cooperation projects from 7 from previous period, so the period 7 to 13, to more than 27 projects which are now being implemented. But we still have one public call to be published at the end of this year for the cooperation project. So I think that the numbers and the projects and the added value which the projects give to the area, they speak for themselves. And when the representative of the government comes to, let me say, to a final event of special projects, they get this impression. They got the impression about the added value, the meaning of this, let me say, small projects. And in my opinion, this leader or CLLD, small projects can have, and they really have, bigger and long-term results than the major, if I may say so, major investment or yeah, let me say investment measures, projects, sorry.
All right, thank you. Well, of course, the question was a little bit as an experience for also other member states, since sadly we know not every member state is involved in CLLD as Slovenia. So and we also had these immense problems during the CPR negotiation to actually get the obligation to get CLLD into the funds. But maybe for everybody who's listening at the moment and who's like thinking, okay, how can we ensure that we get either more funds, but also different projects with more citizens' participation into the programs? I think it is now the time to really talk to your member states' ministries and to really ensure that they put the programs in, because there is additional value for the programs. There's additional value for the regions themselves. We have heard so much about very good examples where regions grew thanks to the involvement of citizens. But there's also basically more money, because you get additional funding from the co-financing from the European Union. So I think it's very important to take on that fight and really talk to your ministries right now, so that Eleftherios can then be very happy with all the applications from the member states. But you have the word. You raised your hand.
Yes, I wanted to complement this point by reminding to all of us, but again, thanks to the European Parliament, we have an enhanced and very strengthened principle of partnership in the new legislative package. And this principle of partnership is a very key feature for the implementation of the RDF and the Cohesion Fund, because it's building on the multi-level governance approach, and it's ensuring the involvement of the regional and the local and the other civil society, economic, social partners, and where appropriate, even research and academic institutions and NGOs. So in this process, the let's say the need or the demand or the potential of the CLLD can be raised and should be raised by all these actors that are taking part in shaping up the new programs.
All right, we have to round up already because we only have a few minutes left. Alina, there was a question for you posted in the chat, especially about the presidency. Maybe you want to answer on that really quick?
Yes, very briefly and quickly. Thank you, Nicholas, for the floor. Of course, as I mentioned in my first appearance, the development of rural areas, or aligned with the long-term vision of rural areas, is one of the key priorities of Slovenian Agricultural Ministry, and of course, Smart Villages is a part of that. And there will be a special event dedicated to smart villages, which is titled Smart Villages in Digital and Green and Resilient Europe. And this event will be at the beginning of October, of course, in Slovenia, in a very special castle, and will be organized with the Ministry of Agriculture together with the MEP, Mr. Franz Bogovic. So you're most welcome to join us. Of course, I hope that we will be able to host all of you in our castle. I hope, I'm very optimistic that there will be no COVID situation anymore. So, but if not, the event will be also how is it said? I don't know. It will be visible via the online or internet.
Of course, yeah. I mean, if you're talking about smart villages, then that has to be there, right? Thank you very much, and thank you already for giving us an input on that. And I think it will be noted. Of course, Frank, as you know, is our co-chair here in the intergroup for RUMRA and Smart Villages. I want to round it up. Thank you very much for all our speakers today. I think we've learned quite a lot. We've seen very good examples on how community-led local development really brings forth the community as well as the regions themselves. We saw how we can use it in the future. We know that we all have, some tasks to do in the future. The Commission will check very precisely on how CLD has been done in the member states. We all have to lobby for CLD and the good cause of support for CLD as well as for rural development in our member states. I think we will all do that. We have support from the Parliament. We have support from the Commission, and hopefully also, as we heard, since it's a priority for the Council presidency as well, we'll see additional support from Council there as well. So let us use this push, and let us support rural development as well as citizens' participation in the programs. I hope it was of interest for you all. If you're interested, you can also try to connect here. We can leave it open for maybe another 5 minutes for you to exchange some emails. I sadly have to go very much on time, so I have to rush out. But thank you very much for being here. Last but not least, I really want to thank especially the technical crew behind that. Without them, it wouldn't have been possible. First of all, thank you very much to EU40 for supporting this event. Thank you very much for Mona for being here and supporting us on the live stream, but also on Twitter and promoting it. Thank you very much for Alessandro for doing all the technical support here. Thank you very much, Adam, for doing all the preparation and inviting and preparing this and being our good soul on the intergroup side. And thank you, of course, to my assistant Nelly, who helped out quite a lot in every regard. So thank you very much, everyone, for doing the good work and giving us the possibility to have this very interesting talk. If you're interested to be more informed about rural development and regional development, you can always check my website and enter to our newsletter there to be up to date with everything that's going on in the European Parliament. And please let us know if you have any information from your side. We're always interested in what's going on in your region, because we want to improve the life of every region, and therefore we need your insights, what's going on. That's it. I thank you very much, especially to our 8 speakers today. Thank you for your insights. Thank you very much, and take care, stay healthy, and see you hopefully very soon, maybe the latest in a castle in Slovenia. But other than that, maybe again in Brussels at some point. Thank you very much, and goodbye.